Gotta adjust my belt because I am doing some walking, and we're heading into our 6th mile, but nobody's talking about this, and that is that what I have been talking about is the fact that these Nords that habitate the inner planet and have this high technology are sending unmanned drones up here where they can psychically hone them in themselves when they get back into the inner Earth. And they get back in, they don't have to go all the way to the South Pole. They can actually access it through a cave or tunnel system down into the ocean. That's what these UFOs or these UAP are. Well, the UAP or something else. And so this $23 million was a trade for them to secure, procure farm assistance, food assistance, because they lost their ability to be able to grow, to farm and grow foods that have adequate mineralization, because we have begun to, through the population boom, we have begun to cultivate and take up the nutrient density, richness and density to where they are literally beginning to starve themselves out. So they're reaching out and doing this trade where they are giving our CIA, Chinese MSS most likely, and these organizations around the world, these covert operations, right? They're doing this sort of deep state shadow government trade that's linked directly up with Raytheon, even BlackRock, Blackwater, when it was, you know, somebody like Lou Elizondo is a perfect example of what comes out of something like Blackwater. Not that he did, but it's like this hired for contract security that is trained in all these covert operations, right? And so it went under a different name. It became, Blackwater became a security agency that really was working as a counterintelligence propagandist organization to make it look like, oh, it's nothing to see here, folks, right? So what you're looking at, what it's not being talked about, is these people have all this technology, but then you have to start wondering why in the fuck they don't get off the planet, right? And then you begin to realize that we haven't been supposedly back to the moon. In fact, we probably never even traditionally, from a traditional sense, went to the moon. And so you begin to look at things a little bit differently, like, what is our capability? Like, sure, we can send the Voyager 1 160 AU, you know, almost twice the distance of the sun now. Your astronomical units, right? 93 million miles. And we've got a trade going on here, right? But we aren't benefiting from this, so it's a problem. And so it was all to acquisition and acquire these anti-gravitics, and that justifies all these things and is the missing link with Tartaria, all of these gaps in history, and to seal in a timeline, right? So these aren't like, these are genetically engineered beings that are purported to be really tall. They're like 6.5 feet tall, typically, even up to 7 feet tall. They are capable, and some of them have been reported as being much taller, but I'm not sure what their affiliation is. You know, I think that they actually have been getting shorter and smaller, right? And I've posted a lot of information up about that. Just a sort of natural evolution or de-evolution that occurs. Copies of copies of copies. So we have had the wool pulled over our eyes. We have had information kept back from us. It's about time we begin to demand knowledge of this. All these people that are working out there are counterintelligence. Even Danny Sheehan, he acts like he's some, you know, benevolent person, but he has ties to all these people. None of these people that are talking about it. See, the problem is that we think that we are creating this vetting process, right? But these systems that they've gone through, the schools they've gone through, David Grush, Jake Barber, all these people, they are vetted through the government, right? And even more so, they create these programs like the congressional, you know, like Luna, Anna Luna and all this, being a stripper, and her grandfather being a Nazi and all this, and the thing, all these illusions, right, that are going on around here, all these things that are being alluded to, they come back to one fundamental thing, and that is that these inner earth dwellers are not as sophisticated as they seem. They are scouting for not only resources, but they're sending drones up because they become so sedentary, right, in the way that they do things, that they can no longer even sustain themselves through hard work. So they're also not in a strong position where they can even demand from a so-called slave class. You know, they're stuck here. So you have to wonder, if they're stuck here, are we stuck here too, right? There's been no evidence that we're not, right? There's been no evidence that we can go up above the upper atmosphere. Like, sure, people can go up into space. You see them do this up into the upper atmosphere, but not in space. But you don't see proof that any ship has even gone up into space. In fact, I think that NASA knows about this. And I think if they've actually got equipment that can, if Voyager 1 is really 161 AU away from us at this point, right? Then they understand this, and they understood the electromagnetic barriers that they have to pass through, the belt systems they had to pass through, right? So they understand the Faraday, you know, the depth of the Faraday cage that's required, and the protections and the plates that are required in order to pass that barrier. And they know a lot more about it than they're letting on.